How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to 3 Agree Ministry. Before we get into today's video, a lot of people have been asking me, Dayton, I saw your video that you posted where you're saying Protestants are making me Catholic. Dayton, does that mean that you are now Catholic? Is that what you're trying to say? And then obviously I followed up that video with a defense for the intercession of saints and the doctrine of the communion of saints. So where does that put me? Where do I find myself? Well, I just wanted to be open and transparent. I don't want to be hidden in the sense of anybody who's looking to my ministry or to my videos to feel like they're being deceived by me in any way. So just being completely open and transparent. Right now, I am not in communion with either the Catholic or Orthodox Church. However, I have been convinced of the Catholic and Orthodox faith. So right now I am a seeker, potential candidate for the Catholic Church, also with Orthodoxy, and also with some very high church Protestants. There's still a lot of things I'm working through on understanding where I'm at in certain high church Protestant groups. But right now I am not technically Catholic, I'm not technically Orthodox, and I'm not technically Protestant at the moment. I know that doesn't help my case for trying to sound like I'm any authority to anybody, but again, I'm not claiming to be anybody's authority. These are just things that I've noticed, and today's video is kind of an interesting one. I'm going to try to make it quicker than my normal videos. Normally going 20-30 minutes, probably won't go that long anyway, but today I wanted to address something. Oftentimes when I'm dialoguing with people who are either Catholic, Orthodox, or especially with the Protestants, whenever they look into Catholicism, the number one concern that they always have is the Catholic Church and how they talk about Mary. So for me, I wanted to make sure that I could kind of steelman some of their arguments when it comes to the dogmas, when it comes to the questions and concerns that many Protestants have against Mary, or not against Mary, but against Catholics venerating Mary. So with that, I thought we would start a little bit of a series talking about Mary. I don't know if my next video will just be Mary, because that just seems like a lot of Mary in a row. But this video I think is the greatest way to start it. So just wanted to get that out there. But without further ado, let's get into today's question. Do Catholics worship Mary? So you guys, one of the very main things that I get anytime I am on the Twitterverse defending Catholics, because a lot of the times what I'm realizing when I'm out in the apologetic sphere, especially on Twitter or X, the people who are getting strawmanned and misrepresented the most are 90% Catholics. Now, that is not to say that Catholics don't strawman Protestants, because I'll be the first to put my right hand up and say that Catholics do strawman Protestants, and they, the arguments back and forth to me are silly, and I've made a promise to myself to never strawman anyone and see where this leads me. So again, I'm convinced of the apostolic succession, specifically with the validity of like a Eucharist and stuff like that. Long story, we'll get into those as this channel goes, of course, because we're on a journey and so am I on this together. But one of the things that you will obviously see, anybody who's in this world, they'll see Catholics, you worship Mary. You guys are committing idolatry. And even people go as far as to say they are the cult of Mary. So today I wanted to address specifically the claims of idolatry and worship of Mary. So today's question, as we just stated, do Catholics worship Mary? And let's just say it right here up front, no, Catholics do not worship Mary, and honestly it's kind of silly to say that they do, okay? Worshipping anything other than God is idolatry, and it's specifically condemned by the Catholic Church. This is very clear. Catholics do, however, venerate Mary by giving her her due honor and respect, okay? Many Protestants will push back to that claim by saying that the manner in which Catholics venerate border and are in a really scary zone for idolatry, right? They'll say you bow down to her, you have statues of her, and you even pray to her, right? And these are, or seemingly are, acts of worship that are due to God alone, right? So let's break this down, let's break this claim. And to do this, let's begin with the biggest one. And I think if we get the biggest one out of the way, it'll help a lot. Praying. Most Protestants will reach and point towards the Catholic and say, you guys pray to Mary. That is an act for God only, okay? In the American English language that the Protestants use, the word pray does actually carry a very specific meaning. It's an act of communication with God. And again, this carries a very specific meaning that praying in this sense is only to God and is indeed a specific act of worship, which I actually agree with this. And that is the meaning of prayer in today's modern terms. However, according to the definition that the Catholics use, there's something different, okay? So if we use the English definition of the word, then it feels like to pray to anything but God is idolatry. However, if you pray to Mary by the definition that the Latin Church teaches, this is not actually idolatry. Unfortunately for Protestants, they fail to understand that the word pray does not carry the same meaning in its historical Latin definition, okay? The Catholic Church, when they teach to pray to the saints, it's not pray in the modern English sense of the word, okay? It has the traditional Latin meaning, which simply means to ask and to ask earnestly, okay? They don't pray in the way that Protestantism of today teaches the world, okay? They're asking, in this case, they're asking the saints, in this case Mary, to pray for them, right? So guys, to me, it's a clear straw man to hold a Catholic who prays to Mary to a definition that they do not even accept, okay? And the church does not teach that definition either, okay? Many will push back by saying that you still can't ask anything of the saints, right? They're dead, right? To ask anything of the saints is to bypass God. However, you guys, as you know, I just made an entire Bible study dedicated to that specific question and that specific doctrine of the communion of saints. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video because if you listen to that video, a lot of it ties into what we're talking about today. So it's definitely important to understand that first before coming here. So if you guys haven't done that, leave this video real quick, go watch that one, and come back to this one. Okay, but for now, let's move on to the acts that these people talk about, specifically the act of bowing, right? Protestants will rightly go to passages that show that bowing is kind of worship, right? Leviticus 26, 1-2 says, "You shall not make idols for yourselves or erect an image or pillar, and you shall not set up a figured stone in your land to bow down to it, for I am the Lord your God. You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord." Exodus 20:4-5 says, "You shall not make for yourselves a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water and the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers and the children unto the third and fourth generation of those who hate me." So real quick, guys, this was one of the words when I was a Protestant or defending Protestantism against Catholics, and when they would say this, I'd be like, okay, God literally says not to bow down to idols. So God considers bowing worship, right? Well, this seems like a pretty clear statement that God hates it when you bow down to things, right? Well, there's a couple of things to note here. In each of these passages, it is referencing that these other things that they are bowing down to are idols or other gods, okay? 2 Kings 17:35 says, "The Lord made a covenant with them and commanded them, you shall not fear other gods, or bow yourselves to them, or serve them, or sacrifice to them." So guys, you shall not do these things to other gods, okay? Throughout the scripture, the act of bowing itself is not actually an act of worship unless it is towards something you are claiming to be God. For example, Genesis 23:7 says, "Abraham rose and bowed to the Hittites, the people of the land." Surely Abraham here isn't worshiping these people, right? And I know some people will point and be like, well, this is like the pre-Moses world, right? The law hadn't been given yet. Well, listen to this. 1 Samuel 24:8 says, "Afterwards, David also arose and went out of the cave and called after Saul, 'My Lord and my King.' And when Saul looked behind him, David bowed with his face to the earth and paid him homage." 1 Kings 1:16 says, Bathsheba bowed and paid homage to the king. And the king said, "What do you desire?" 1 Kings 1:31 says, Then Bathsheba bowed with her face to the ground and paid homage to the king and said, May my Lord King David live forever. So these are just a few examples of the many instances where the act of bowing, the physical act of bowing, is not in itself worship. So guys, with this, let's address a bit deeper the passages that condemn bowing, right? In all of these examples I just gave, we specifically see that these people are actually bowing down to other people, right? They're not bowing down to images, objects, or statues. We see in Exodus 32 when the Israelites create for themselves a golden calf and they bow down to it. And God views this as idolatry, right? And doesn't this sound a lot like how the Catholics bowing down to an image or statue of Mary could be idolatry? Well, let's recount that situation, because this is one that the Protestants use all the time. This is Exodus 32:8. It says, They have turned aside quickly out of the way that I commanded them. They have made for themselves a golden calf, and have worshipped it, and sacrificed to it, and said, These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. So real quick, what do we see here? They made a golden calf, and they worshipped it, and made sacrifices to it, and said that these are your gods. You guys, this is not even close to what we see Catholics doing with Mary. They do not worship the statue. They do not make sacrifices to it or call the statue their God, okay? These things are truly things that are reserved for God alone, none of which Catholics do or attribute to Mary, okay? This is true idolatry because they exchanged the calves for God. Psalm 106, 19-20 says, They made a calf in Horeb and worshipped a metal image. They exchanged the glory of God for the image of an ox that eats grass. So guys, it's for this reason that it becomes true idolatry. It's because it fits perfectly the definitions that we see laid out in the passages that we quoted earlier. The scripture gives us a quite clear criteria for what an idol is. This is Deuteronomy 5:7-8. It says, You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, or any likeness, or anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Real quick, you guys, it's very important. An idol is a carved image or likeness that you what? You put before God, okay? You exchange it for God. Not only that, but you worship that idol, and again, you're exchanging that idol for God. This is not by any means what I've seen any Catholics do with Mary. And let me say, maybe the Catholic Church's high veneration of Mary does allow a little bit of interpretation where somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about might accidentally worship Mary. And I don't think that that's good, and I think that's why they need to be more clear. But for me, it comes down to, I haven't met it, and obviously if you ask them this, they're not doing that. They may bow down in a way of paying homage. They can venerate the saints who are holy and in heaven with the aid of icons as a way of focusing on the actual person that the icons represent, right? They do not believe, though, that Mary is the statue or is the image. To give a really imperfect analogy, listen to this, and again, it's not perfect. It's similar to, you have an image of your deceased daughter in your wallet that oftentimes you will take out, you'll look at that image, you'll pay homage to her, honor her life, and give yourself focus and motivation to continue on in life and whatever it is you're doing. This is similar to how icons are being used in the Orthodox and Catholic traditions. Idolatry in this example would be more something like this. Idolatry would be like, you created a doll of your daughter. You carry that doll around with you and present her to others as if she's your actual, true, and living daughter. You cook it meals, you change its clothes, and in your mind you believe that this doll is your daughter. That would be idolatry. To put this back in a Catholic practice, idolatry of Mary would be to create a statue of Mary, exchange her for God, and start worshiping that statue as if she is the true and living God. That is what idolatry would be in reality. It would be giving it sacrifices and viewing the statue as a true deity. That is what idolatry is. It involves an idol, which Mary isn't. and it requires you putting an idol before God. This is what idolatry means. Something that Catholics definitely don't do. So guys, again, this is all a product of the Catholic doctrine for the communion of saints. You have to really understand what's going on there to understand where we get to for the idea of venerating somebody who's passed away. So again, guys, I'm going to link a video, or put a link to that video in the description of this one. Whether you watched that one first and came here, or watched this one and haven't watched that one, they kind of go together. But I just wanted to get the idea of Catholics do not worship Mary, okay? Worship would require true idolatry. It would require bowing down in the sense that they believe she is God. I see Protestants try to use the word that, like, oh, their goddess Mary. That's a word that they use. I have yet to meet a Catholic, and I'm not saying they don't exist, but I have yet to meet one that says, yes, Mary is a deity. She is God. She is the goddess, right? Which, again, all of this leads into, because there's more to this. Protestants won't take just the idea of bowing down or praying to Mary as their only case against this and showing that this is idolatry. Obviously, they'll go into the Marian dogmas and stuff like that, which is something that we'll have to talk about on a later video. I'm trying to keep this video shorter. But you guys, step one, I wanted to get it out of the way. Catholics do not worship Mary. The act of bowing is not worship. The act of praying to, in the sense that Catholics use it, is not worship. But I do understand the gray area and where it kind of gets into the brain of the Protestant, that it appears this way. But the only way appearing to be something and actually being something are just so different. It's hard to make a judgment off of what you think is going on. It's best to completely understand what they think they're doing and to represent them with an open heart, with a charitable heart, and give them the benefit of the doubt before you make a judgment like that. Because what I found when I did that, I was simply false in that judgment. So that's gonna be it for this video. Tried to keep it a little bit shorter, still went long anyway. I appreciate y'all. I'll see you on the next video. Peace.